Really speaking on behalf of some of the other residents as well of Mead End regarding the parking around the school, which is beyond horrendous. I recently contacted a member in here who kindly put me in the right direction. My house has been in my family for 40 odd years and it's never been anything like it has done in the last 2 or 3 years. It doesn't matter male, female, who's driving. It's horrendous for whoever wants to park. They'll park where they want to park. Double yellow lines, cars on the other side of the road. They don't care. The gaps are left minimal for the buses. Sometimes in the evenings more, the 3 o'clock pickup, the buses can't get through. They'll sit there with their horn on. They have a schedule to stick to and they have kids to pick up from other places and whatever. They'll just sit there, you know. Basically, it's got to the point where we're being abused outside our own houses. Of recent, as 2 weeks ago, I won't be using the language that was used against me, but they bump up the curb. They've knocked down some of the posts that are put there to stop them parking on. The bigger vehicles push them over. The lady that lived next door to us was going to come today. She had an experience a few weeks ago, but she's actually gone on holiday today. They nearly ran her dog over, that she was walking on a lead, and they came so fast at her. When she spoke to them about it, they just ignore her. Actually, a member of staff from the school saw that happen. Someone was parked over, not physically over our drive 2 weeks ago, but they're so far over it, 2 cars, that I couldn't get in, and they refused to move to let me get on my own drive. Also, there is photographic evidence of people, and I've seen it and had to go up and ask them to move, because I myself have to go and pick my grandchildren up from another school in the Biggleswade area. So leaving at the time they're all coming. They actually reverse between the 2 parked cars and park over my drive, because they need to be, people start parking there at about 10 past 2. They don't pick up till 20 past to try and get there. So we would just like some help, really. The other point that I have as well is a safety issue for the children. There is an alleyway that's not far from us. And a lot of children from the estate near the railway are coming through now. They've hit that age group where they walk to school on their own, and they're coming up that alleyway. There is no visibility whatsoever for those children to see over cars, most of which are bigger cars nowadays, family cars. They have no visibility to see over cars. It is a disaster to waiting to happen for a child to be knocked down, and not just purely because they're not seen. And I don't understand why. Also, the other thing is, when you look at the school to the left-hand side, the people that live down that side have been given yellow double lines, but the people that live our side, it's almost, we've got nothing. We have no protection for getting on and off of our own properties. But we'd just like some help. But like I said, there's a safety issue here as well. We don't know what else we can do apart from the fact that we're just now physically, not physically, but vocally abused on a weekly, monthly basis. So that's all. That's all I've got to say.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And obviously, you know, we have the motion this evening, so we'll certainly take into account your views. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, anyone else online? No. Okay, so we'll move straight on then to item 5. Items invited speaker. We have none. So item 6, members' questions. Any members' questions, please? I see none. Okay, so we'll straight on then to minutes. So we've got 2 lots of minutes, Town Council and then the final F&GP to note. So I'm going to go through the Town Council minutes for the 11th of March, firstly for accuracy. So we're on page 8. So accuracy on page 8, please. Page 9, Councillor Woodhead.
Just 2 points related to 5A. It's listed as PSCO when it should be PCSO in the title.
Good spot.
And also it seems to flick between Inspector Goldsmith and Chief Inspector Goldsmith. So we just need to work out which one he is. Okay. I think he's Chief Inspector, but it's not consistent through the text.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on page 9? No. Page 10, page 11, page 12, Councillor Russell.
Sorry, I'm back on page 11, a bit slow there.
Okay.
Members, this is item 9A, the last paragraph. Members requested that officers highlight the potential presence of a gated property. No, there is a house there with a gate.
Are you saying that the gate isn't potential? It is actually there. Yeah.
So can we please put something that reflects that what we were trying to do, that was to avoid that house not being able to access the gates that lead to its garage?
Yes, you're quite right, and I know Fund of a Nation will be looking at me going, well, you looked at these and you edited these, so I know that's what I did edit these, so I take some responsibility for that. So quite right. So we'll come up with a proper wording. So anything else then on page 11, Councillor Russell?
Just add that second paragraph, last line at the end. I think it's broader banking, not baking.
Where are we?
Last line of the second paragraph at the top of the page. Access to broader baking.
You're quite right as well. Yeah, I missed that one as well. Right, shall we move on? Okay, page 12. Oh, that's terrible. Page 12, anything accuracy? Page 13, Councillor Russell.
Sorry again.
Nice.
This is item 10C. Strongly object to the application. Based on reports by landscape officers, blah, blah, and the archaeology officers who have indicated to the documented multi-period, it should be referred to, the archaeological officers have referred to the documented multi-period archaeological landscape. Please.
Okay, page 13, page 14, and page 15. Okay, thank you. So subject to those amendments, are you happy for me to sign those off? Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
We will then, so we have the minutes, the draft minutes to the F&GP meeting. And they're there for noting rather than anything else. So if you're happy to note them, thank you, Councillor Strawn. We'll then move back to matters arising. So I'm now back onto the Town Council meeting, 11th of March, matters arising. Page 8, anything matters arising. Page 9, Councillor Strawn.
Yes, item 5A, and the references in particular to e-scooters. The fame of Biggleswade extends up to Hull, who've a gentleman there kindly let us know that Derbyshire Police have a no tolerance policy with regard to e-scooters and are happy to confiscate them all the time. And I was just wondering whether, following the comments made by the inspector or chief inspector at the meeting, whether we could write to say the police and crime commissioner, the chief constable, and to the chief inspector, pointing out some of the information that this gentleman kindly supplied us with.
What's the feeling from the floor for everyone else? So should we be writing? Is that a proposal, Councillor Strawn?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone disagree with that approach? Anyone happy with that approach? Councillor. So okay, let's do that then. Okay. Shall we? Where are we? Page 10 for matters arising. Page 11. 11, yes, Councillor Russell.
I just thought it was a bit cynical, the paragraph at the top. Officers responded that despite 2 further requests for information, they were informed that the arboreal team would be responding. However, if no information had been received, they'd been advised to put the matter on Fix My Street. I think that, however, if no information had been received, sounds like you won't get a response. And I've just wondered whether there is any update on that from officers.
Mr. Hosseini.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So yes, there has been a response, not from the CBC officers who we approached, but actually from the arboreal team, who then did request that we go straight onto Fix My Street. We submitted the request onto Fix My Street regarding Crab Lane, and the response has been that they are looking into that matter and will be cutting shortly. But it may or may not be a seasonal thing. They're still considering that matter further.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. It seems it does seem a little bit unfortunate that a town council has to put a request onto Fix My Street to actually get something done. It seems entirely inappropriate. But if that's the guidance we've been given, what our office is supposed to do. So thank you for doing that. Okay. Where are we on page? Lost my way. We're on page 12 now. Matters arising. Page 13, page 14, and page 15. Okay. Thank you very much. So we will move now on to item 9A, which is the flag flying policy. Members receive and consider a written report from the Head of Governance and Strategic Partnerships. Mr. Tarrant is going to introduce.
Okay, if I can start the conversation, and then Corinne will present the more detailed paper. I thought it might be helpful, firstly, just to remind members of the progress that's been made in regard to this issue. So at Council on the 10th of December, the following resolution went through: that officers liaise with Biggleswade Pride Organising Group to determine a suitable date for a flag to be raised on the Market Square flagpole for Biggleswade Pride weekend. That the Town Council officially recognise Biggleswade Pride as an important event that celebrates diversity, inclusion and equality in the local community. That Biggleswade Pride is included on the events page of the Council's website. And lastly, that the progressive Pride flag, these are the words from the meeting, be considered for inclusion in the flag flying policy review in February of 25. And lastly, when this then went to TCM, the resolution coming from that was it was resolved that the draft policy be circulated to all council members for review with a certain time frame and then brought back to the next TCM. And in this case, because council is the predominant decision-making body of the authority, we brought it back to council so that we can swiftly offer members the opportunity to conclude on this issue. Corinne, thank you. Thanks. So going through this, the report essentially sets out under Appendix A, a clean copy of the flag flying policy, which is being proposed this evening before members. There's also under Appendix B, a copy of the SharePoint version, which was put out on SharePoint for members, which also had some hard copies as well available. And that's received some commentary from members, which is included actually there. But referring back to Appendix A here, the April 2025 version, we have essentially, there hasn't been too much change from the current policy, which is in situ at the moment. So we have, following the DCMS national guidance for flying flags, we have Category A, Category B, Category C flags. The current policy at the moment has a range of dates when flags can and should be flown. It has other flags set out there as well. And it has a disposition, always has done in terms of the current policy, for any external inquiry to come into the town council to be referred to the town clerk, the mayor and the deputy mayor for discussion and decision in terms of approving the flag, whichever flag it may be, to be flown on whichever occasion. The current Appendix A version, draft in front of us this evening has two paragraphs at the end which cover Category C flags. And there isn't essentially any change in proposal in terms of the proposed policy and the current policy. There's simply a little bit more detail in terms of what would be required. So an external inquiry would come in through, it would again be discussed by the mayor, the deputy mayor and the town clerk for decision, at which point, if it's approved, essentially, it would then go through to officers to submit a request using the DCMS guidance to the local planning authority, which is CBC. And that would be done at the cost of the inquirer, but of course officers would make sure the process happens. In terms of cost, that would be something like £60 for an hour's worth of time for CBC's planning expert to give the advice, something like another £100 on top for the actual planning application to be submitted, and then the cost of a flag, which on average is about £60 to £80. Clearly, any inquiry coming in would need to be with sufficient notice to be able to go through that kind of process, which makes it take some time with CBC to approve it, and then the flag will be flown. I'll pause there. Sorry? It takes forever. Well, I'll pause there. Thanks.
Okay. Do you want to say anything
I
else?
just wanted, just one final comment, if that's okay. So just just to aid clarity in regard to this subject, the issue for any flag other than a category C flag is entirely consistent with the previous policy, which is very simple. That anything of that categorization, as Karim has said, goes to the mayor, deputy mayor, clerk, some determination is made, and if there's a positive determination, then effectively it's actioned and the costs are then picked up by the relevant body, yes? For category C flags, as we say, consistent with national guidelines, it would have to be referred to CBC to seek planning permission. Yep, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Peter. I'm going to offer it open to members shortly. One of the things that obviously that the resolution of TCM in particular was to deal with the progressive pride flag as part of a flag policy review. Now, obviously, we are going to be dealing with that this evening. Let's just make sure that we're very clear on our position on that particular flag or where it fits within the policy. So I just want to emphasise that particular point. But I'm going to offer it up to members to speak. So over to you. Anyone wishing to speak, please. Councillor Woodhead, then.
Yeah. Thank you, and thank officers for all their hard work putting together the paper. I mean, there's quite a bit in here. I mean, I think the bit I want to focus on really is there clearly needs to be some sort of approval process or backstop, for want of a better phrase, in approving the the different flags. My concern is it's potentially putting a lot of pressure on three people. And perhaps introducing, unnecessary potential conflict either with other council members or with external groups. And also, if those three people, what happens if they disagree? Where does it go? I don't know what the process would be set out if two were in favour, one wasn't, etc. Is it a simple majority? So I would like to perhaps explore the point that if we do go down this road, that maybe it ought to be, especially if you're looking at planning permission, this wouldn't be a quick process anyway, is to look at maybe the nearest council meeting for an approval process for when it's submitted or thereabouts, because I think it's otherwise it's putting too much pressure, I think, on a few people that could cause problems, and therefore the council can take a collective position on that rather than perhaps just three people.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Woodhead. Councillor Knight.
Thank you, and I agree with a lot of what Councillor Woodhead said. So I'm completely comfortable with the council flying celebratory or commemorative flags, and we already do that, and we have a policy that covers a lot of those. I think the challenge is that some flags are more contentious and could be considered campaign flags or political flags rather than being commemorative flags. And I personally don't think a town council should get involved in campaigns or things that are potentially more contentious. We shouldn't pick sides. And you could imagine the town council could be asked to fly an Israel flag, or the town council could be asked to fly a Gaza flag. Do we really want to be going down that path? Plenty of good causes, no judgments, but I don't think it's something we should do, because we have to be the council for everyone in this town, and therefore I think we should be careful to avoid those contentious areas. So I'd like to see a prohibition on campaign and political flags in the policy, and just say let's not do those and stick to commemorative flags that are really the spirit of what we have today. I think to the point that Councillor Woodhead said, we have a principle that I hold dearly, that all councillors are equal, and I'm a bit concerned at this idea that we delegate to to members and the clerk, for a private discussion and in a meeting that's not public, as Councillor Woodhead said. So that's a lot of pressure to put on two members. It's a matter of council policy what flags we fly, and I think those should be public discussions and not closed room debate. So I would like to see any requests that do come in that aren't campaign flags to be considered at TCM or council. Now, if the reality is we have to get planning permission, that's a slow process. So waiting until the next TCM or council meeting isn't really going to slow anything down. And I just made the point, there's still the officer time. So if we actually have to submit planning applications and liaise with central beds, you can see we're going to run up hundreds of pounds worth of officer time on this potentially. And I'm not sure that's a good path. So I'd like to hear other members' views on that. But my summary is I'd like to see a prohibition on campaign or political flags, and I'd like any exceptions to essentially asking for revisions to the policy, which is what would have to happen to come to council or TCM in the usual way.
Okay, thank you. Councillor North.
Well, firstly, I'll start by saying I don't think we should be changing the flag flying policy at all. We went through this at some length a couple of years ago, and it was agreed, and I find it perfectly adequate. Secondly, we are told we've got a track changes version of this, which I have failed to find actually, and the comments are included. Maybe it's just my version of it, that we don't have the comments that were attached to the track changes that was put on SharePoint. So I'm not sure what that's about. If we are to go ahead with this wording, I agree with other comments. Actually, it's interesting that both the two previous councillors have said the same thing, that it should basically be a resolution of the whole council, not just the two positions and the town clerk. I think that's wrong for the reasons that have been explained. Another point about the wording here, it says something about a category C flag, whereas in the actual body of the document, it is not defined what a category C flag is, which I think is not properly communicating the position to people. And my final point is, I think, really picking up what Councillor Knight said, that I don't think we should be opening up the flag thing to if this is agreed, you may well all sorts of different lobbyists, campaigners, pressure groups will be coming along wanting their flag to be flown. And in terms of applying for planning permission, I would expect that no officer time is spent on this whatsoever. But if somebody wants to apply for planning permission, they apply for it themselves, and it doesn't involve any of the officers of the town council. I mean, that is not what people are employed to do, applying for planning permission for people's campaign group flags. They should do it themselves. And that's really my only comments.
Okay, Peter, do you want to respond?
Matter of clarity, that's all. So the existing flag flying policy, before it was shared with members on SharePoint, and before it came to our discussions this evening, that existing old policy suggested that it goes to the mayor, deputy mayor and clerk. I think it's actually a very sensible conversation that we're having this evening to widen that debate, but that actually is in the old policy. It's nothing new connected to that. There's two roads of travel here. So the way that I read this, if we get a request to fly a category C flag, then it goes to CBC and planning permission is requested. It doesn't go internally, it goes direct. My logic would suggest that. If there's anything less than that, then the current situation would suggest that those three people have a conversation, but it might be more sensible to widen that debate.
Can I make a point of order, please? I've just been on the council's website and looked at the flag policy, which is dated 2022, and it doesn't mention anything about the clerk, the mayor and the deputy mayor. So if the version on the website's the current version, I'm afraid that's incorrect information.
Thank you.
No, I trust what you've said, Mark, so I just...
Is that correct?
Okay.
It hasn't got specifically that wording. It has at the discretion of the mayor, though, with reference to range.
Okay, so there's a bit of an inaccuracy there then. So thanks for pointing that out. Okay. Anything else, Peter, you wish to add? Okay. Councillor Russell.
Thank you. Yes, I was surprised by that clause. I'd never come across that before, but there we are. I think we're making life incredibly complicated when we don't need to make life complicated. Why are we even considering category 3C flags at all? Why do we want to make life more complicated for both officers here on the admin side and the people who would have to be dealing with all of this? Because I do think it's an issue that we should consider about the amount of time keep changing flags if we're flying different flags all the time. So I'm not sure what the paragraph that says other commemorative flags to signify significant events or support for council initiatives. What exactly would we be talking about there? Why are we making this so complicated? I mean, I think that the policy as it stands, although I think we need to look at the last bullet point before other flags on page 28, where it says, at the discretion of the mayor to commemorate local civic and community dignitaries who have recently passed away. But that's only talking about Union flag and flying it at half-mast. I don't think there were any other mentions in the previous policy. So I think that what's on page 28 and the second bullet point on 29 about the town council flag is all we really need to have as a policy. We can always revise this at any time we want. If something comes up that we're not happy with, then council can consider it. But I would propose that we just take the policy as it is. We take out all this about category C flag requests. If somebody externally wants to apply for permission and then come to the town council and say they've got permission to fly the flag, then the question is, well, where do they want to fly it? Because they would have to ask the council for that. And as for the funding, well, I don't think we should be encouraging people to apply for grants to buy a flag. I was a bit taken aback by that. And for some of these things, you're buying a flag to be flown one day a year. So what happens to the flag for the other days? Does it belong to the group or have they donated it to the town council? If they've donated it to the town council, where does it get stored? If it's the groups and they take it away with them after the day, then the next year, people at the town council are going to be saying, oh, well, such and such a flag should be flown on that day. Where is it? We haven't got it. You know, it's just lots and lots of silly complications. And I think my main concern is that I don't want to see us doing anything that creates division in the community. We should be aiming to be one community. We need integration of everybody. I remember a few years ago when we realised how many people were moving up from the south to buy cheaper houses in Biggleswade, and we were really worried about integrating those people who live on moved into Land East. And that's when we started having as many events on the market square to try and draw people into the town centre, because it seemed as if people were just going straight onto the A1 and back to where they used to shop or whatever. I think we've got the same issue with the people who have moved into the town for different reasons, because we've got lots of different nationalities in the town. And I think we need to create one community, not be celebrating this bit of the community, that bit of the community, and some other. So I think we should only be flying flags which celebrate what Biggleswade is and what we all stand for, which is why I would propose that we leave things as they are, taking out the top bullet point on page 29 and the 2 paragraphs underneath. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? Councillor North again. Councillor Straw.
My observation is that looking at the proposed flag policy and having listened to all the comments, as I understand it, there are certain flags that do not require planning permission, which can be flown regardless. And basically the flags under C all require specific planning permission. If one looks at those under B alone, and you look at all the flags which do not need consent, there are so many flags there. It's just getting to the stage where we could have staff putting up different flags every day of the year. for the different reasons. And I think that keeping it simple makes every sense. I think that if someone wishes to fly a particular flag which isn't on the A or B list, they can always make a planning application and they can do so at their own expense. And then it can be decided whether or not we're in a position where we might wish to fly it. And that could be a decision of the council at that stage, rather than creating it. I think we've got more than enough flags anyway to fly, just looking at the list. I think the proposal makes every sense in that respect.
Okay, so just to do a couple of questions then. So Peter, perhaps you can help us with. So the flags listed in category B, which include any sports club, the rainbow flag, eco schools, Queen of Wales Enterprise, NHS flag as examples. Currently, then, if the current flag policy allows us to fly those, and at the discretion of who makes the decision whether that is okay. So that's the responsibility of the mayor. So again, in terms of the policy, so just to clarify, I'm just trying to clarify my understanding and understanding for everybody else. So if there was a category B flag that wanted to be flown, with the current policy, none of those flags can be flown. Is that correct? Or they can be flown at the discretion? Go on.
So if the version on the website is the definitive version, which is certainly the last version I recall, then there is no discretion. And certainly no discretion to fly additional flags. The only discretion is on the death of a serving town councillor, or at the discretion of the mayor to commemorate a local civic and community dignitary who's recently passed away. There's no other discretion.
Thank you. The reason I'm asking the question is to get to a point where we're absolutely clear what we are voting for here. So are we saying that, hold on a second, if you don't mind, Councillor. So we're absolutely clear then that the policy as laid out, which doesn't specifically detail the process around category B flags or category C flags, we are saying that category B and category C flags will not be part of the policy?
That's exactly what I'm saying, because I'm saying simply these that are national, county, town flags or military flags, because the military serve all of us and have served us wonderfully well in the past and may have to in the future. I'm saying they're the only flags that we should fly. That's what my proposal is saying.
Councillor Barrett, thank you.
Just add something to make sure everyone's read that first paragraph in the red on page 34. Under B, the categories of flag that can be flown: house flags to display the name, emblem, the trademark of the company occupying the building, or can refer to a specific event or lived duration taking place in the building from which the flag is thrown. It doesn't talk about flagpoles. It doesn't talk about anything else. So I think it's okay for us to still refer to the government website B and C, because it covers all the things we want to do. Because these conversations all started from us being asked to raise a flag on our flagpole in the town centre. B here in the government's website doesn't cover that at all. So I don't think we'd have an issue with referring to the government's website from our policy.
Okay, so I have a proposal in a second. The reason I'm trying to address this is because we agreed that we would make a formal decision in relation to the Progress Pride flag, and are members comfortable that decision will be made as a result of the proposal in a second?
It's a category C or whatever it's called, so it would not be flown. And I understand what Councillor Barrett has said. It can be flown from a building. So if something goes on in the market square and the building owner flies something, that's nothing to do with us. This policy is for our flagpoles, the one on the building and the two on the market square.
So I'm going to ask one other question. So what are members' views around the rainbow flag? In other words, not the Progress Pride flag, the rainbow flag. Again, asking the question.
Can I ask that the motion be put, because you're trying to find every other reason to undermine what I'm saying. It's very, very clear what I'm saying. Yes, so I'm saying that we passed.
Councillor Russell, might I say, I'm not trying to undermine what you're saying. Hang on a second. I am trying to clarify so that members fully understand. I know exactly what I'm doing in this particular case. I'm not trying to undermine what you're trying to do. And don't accuse me of that, please. I'm trying to clarify something. Now, I will put the motion in a second.
I
Councillor Strawn.
apologise if I've upset you.
Thank you. Councillor Strawn.
Just for the sake of clarification, the debate is going down the route that the flag policy will relate to flags that can be flown from council flagpoles. There will be other cases where members of the public, if they want to fly a flag from their own building, they can do so, provided they've got the appropriate consents, which may not have any consent, need our consent at all. So if we're dealing purely with our flagpoles, which I believe we are, I think the proposal makes sense, but I think it's just clarity that we're doing that. The national conditions, etc., and guidelines can be applied to other buildings. So if other people want to fly them on their own, from their own house, they can do so.
So, Councillor Russell, if you wouldn't mind just re-clarifying so we're clear on what we're voting on, that would be helpful.
I'm proposing that the policy that starts on page 26 and finishes on page.
Microphone, please, Councillor Russell. Microphone, please.
Sorry, I'm saying that the policy that begins on page 26 and goes forward to 29, that we adopt it as far as page 28, that we take out the top bullet point on page 29 and we take out the two paragraphs there, so that the only thing from page 29 that remains is the town council flag shall be flown on all days other than those listed above. So it's that basic policy that I'm proposing.
Okay. Do I have a second of that? Did you second
Yes,
it?
please.
Yeah. Oh, a second. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Beg your pardon. Okay. So just okay. So we're just to clarify, we're not making any reference to anything to do with any planning applications at all in the policy. We're just saying it's up to them. So we've got nothing in the policy at all then that relates to what someone in the public should do if they want to apply for a flag. That would be my concern here.
Why should we? They can find out what they need to do. If the policies are on the government website, they can find it out. Okay. It's not up to us to educate the public on something like this.
Councillor Knight.
Just to respond to that, so I guess the opportunity that's open for the community is if they do not like the flag policy as adopted, if this this motion is passed, then they can lobby councillors and we can put it on the agenda and revise the policy. That's the vehicle to do it if necessary.
Thank you. So I have a proposal. It's seconded then. All those in favour, please show. I think, is that unanimous? Yes, thank you very much. Okay, shall we move on? So we're now on to 9B, Town Twinning Report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Biggleswade's enjoyed a twinning partnership with LNZ, Hessen near Frankfurt am Main for some 25 years. Some members and members of the community are going out there shortly to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the twinning. That interest has stimulated new interest in the Twinning Association. We've also recently been approached by a couple of suburbs west of Paris, Noisy-le-Roi and Bali, which are suburban and similar in some ways, they think, to Biggleswade. They're quite keen to twin with us and they've visited here. They are much in advance of where we are, so they need holding back a little bit while we try and catch up. The Mayor sent New Year's greetings to them earlier this year, invited them to take part in our victory celebrations as our former allies. A slightly more touchy subject, we've also made approaches to our German twin town, obviously realising the sensitivities and that they won't be celebrating the end of World War II in the same way as we in the French will. The recommendations are to enable officers to extend invitations to both of our partners to participate in our Victory Day celebrations, assist in supporting and reinvigorating the links and exchanges with LNZ at community officer and member level, and to investigate developing closer links with Nwali Ebali, incrementally with a view to developing a formal partnership arrangement. Thank you.
Okay, members, comments, please. Councillor Russell.
Can I just say that on a particular day, I was in the town hall at Erlensay, and there was a discussion about the war. They were very open about it. They were not embarrassed in any way, and they were very glad that there was a large American Air Force base not far from Erlensay. And I think they were as relieved that the war was ended as we may have been. So I would hope we can have that connection with them.
Okay, Councillor Barrett.
Can I just make the point, just respond to the officer there? I do think they do celebrate the end of World War II on May the 8th, as the rest of Europe does at different times. So I think it was inappropriate for us to suggest that they don't do it. They may do it for different reasons, but they do celebrate it.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments then? So, Councillor Russell.
On the wider question, I think it would be very good if the council could take a larger part than it has done for a number of years in the whole concept of twinning. I think one of the reasons that the Twinning Association disbanded was that they didn't get a lot of support. The one thing we used to do was to have a reception in here. If a party from Erlensay arrived on a Friday, we'd have a reception on the Friday tea time for them. And I don't think as a town council we did a lot more. So I think that's good. But I was rather surprised by some of what's in this report. There's obviously been a lot going on. And I would ask that if we are going to go forward with this, that actually the whole council is involved and not just one or two people all the time, which seems to be what's happened. Because certainly as somebody who has been involved with the twinning in Erlensay, I would have liked to have been a bit more involved with what was going on. So that's all I'd say. I'm in favour of going ahead for the recommendation to go ahead. But can people, the whole council, be involved rather than just one or two people? Thank you.
Councillor Strawn.
I think Councillor Russell's proposal is eminently sensible. I happily second that. I think it's important that the town council does possibly take more of a lead, because those who have started the twinning arrangement from the town are regrettably getting a lot older and may not have the enthusiasm, the ability, or I'm afraid the health to pursue it in the way that they did when they were a bit younger. So I think it's important that for the sake of continuity, the town council is more actively involved in supporting the Twinning Association in whatever way. And certainly I think it's the very least we should be doing if visitors from Erlensay are coming over to here, that the town council should make them welcome on behalf of the town, and indeed the mayor would make them welcome on behalf of the town if that occurs. Not that I believe it's happened in your mayorship, sir.
Thank you. Councillor Woodhead.
Thank you. I mean, I agree with a lot of what Councillor Ross has just said. I mean, just sort of 2 points really. Excuse me. Having previously been the sort of town council delegate, if you like, on the twinning association, I think the problem is obviously we had COVID in between, and I think that really interrupted a lot of this activity. So it's great that it's sort of being reactivated. So I think that's a positive thing. I mean, in terms of the French towns that are mentioned in the report, I did meet with one of the representatives just because he happened to be in Biggleswade on that time, at that time rather, and it was a convenient day for me. So I have met with them sort of very informally, and it does seem they are very keen from their perspective. In fact, they even have a Franco-British society set up. That's how keen they are in terms of fostering some of these links. So, and I was very clear, I think, to officers that for the reasons that Councillor Russell described, that the whole council needs to be involved in that decision. It wasn't just about one person, even though I thought, you know, on the face of it, it was a welcome idea. But I think that's partly why we're here now with this report as well. But the French group do seem very keen, so I think that's to be welcome. But obviously, council need to make that decision.
Okay, so I have a proposal. Councillor Russell.
Could I just ask, it's not necessarily part of a formal proposal, but could I just ask if we've got more information about the 2 French suburbs and if that could be circulated, because they're not places I know at all, and I'm sure most colleagues don't. So if officers have gained more information, it would be good if it could be circulated. So
Yep.
sorry.
Yep. Yeah, I think we more than likely have that.
I have a couple of carrier bags in my room. If you'd like to take one home with you.
Thanks for sharing that thought, Ian. That's much appreciated. Right. Okay. So we've got a proposal then, I think is seconded. So all those in favour, please show. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Shall we, we'll move on. So we're now on the A1, so on 9C A1 underpass. You can see the A1 underpass joint statements. Any comments? Councillor Russell.
Councillor North and I met as asked by council to with North Hill Parish Council, and when we met with them, they produced a version of a joint policy statement. Although we've supported North Hill Council in the past on this issue on several occasions, their feeling was that it should be a policy of each of our councils so that it could be taken forward more strongly with discussions with Central Bedfordshire, maybe with National Highways, and certainly with developers. So there was a bit of toing and froing over the wording of the policy statement, but this is what we've come up with that's in front of colleagues this evening. And then you'll see the key dates below. So yes, for us to consider it, North Hill Parish Council will consider it on the 24th of April. And we need a follow-up meeting of the working group. And the ward councillor for North Hill, Councillor Daniels, is going to put a formal question to CBC Council at one of their full meetings to try and raise the profile a bit. And because we know that although the planning application was withdrawn, the developer of the woodland site was prepared to give £3 million towards this. What we don't know yet is actually we've had no feasibility study of any kind, even a very light touch one. So that's why the policy says calling on CBC and National Highways to agree to design and cost the underpass. And it will cost more than £3 million. So then it's whether there's money in the National Highways pot, because they are supposed to have pots of money to avoid communities being divided. So there may be some money there. And then it's whether, if it's a joint policy and we can persuade Central Bed's planning department, there could possibly be Section 106 money from other sources. So the first step is to get a joint policy. So I'd like to propose this formally to the Town Council. Thank you.
Okay, members, comments, please. Councillor North.
Well, I'd like to second the proposal to start with, because it's simply a matter of adopting this as a policy. We did have an interesting meeting with them about this. Whether it really will actually happen or not remains to be seen, but at least we can try, I think. And that's really all I
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? If I may, from the chair, Councillor Russell and Councillor North, the only thing I picked up on, and this is perhaps a wording thing, where it says this can only be an underpass. I think the wording perhaps, my feeling, it perhaps could be this should be rather than can only be, but I accept that this is the wording that's come before us, and maybe that, or we could somehow moderate it, say not moderate it, but reinforce it by our strong preferences. Or, but if you're saying this can only be, but I appreciate I might be in the minority, so I'm raising the point for you to respond to.
The point is that we do not want a bridle bridge, because it would not be suitable for some of the people who want to use it. And I mean, I was taken aback to learn when we had the meeting with North Hill that there is a lady with 2 children who regularly crosses the A1 on foot, which I think is appalling. So something needs to be done, and we've discussed it before in council. We've supported the idea of an underpass, and really a bridle bridge wouldn't hack it. It's so much longer going backwards and forwards, because a bridle bridge is just that. Somebody then in a mobility scooter probably couldn't negotiate it very well. Even with a cycle, you've got a long walk pushing the cycle. So, you know, it is what it is. So I'd be loath to change it, Mayor. I'm sorry.
That's fine. It's a wording change, but it's the same sentiment. So it's just that's fine. I've raised my point. I will. We have a proposal. It has been seconded. Then, if no one else wishes to speak, take it to the vote. All those in favour, please show. That's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to then. So we're now on 9D, parking and road safety. For members to receive and consider the motion from Councillor North. Did you wish to read the motion, or are you happy for members to read it themselves, Councillor North?
Well, I'm happy for members to read it themselves. Yes, I don't think there's any point reading it out. I mean, I think many of us are familiar with the situation down there. The terrible traffic that does occur at the school start and finish hours. And the lady, Joanne West, wrote to me with an email some weeks ago about this, and she obviously was here tonight to present her case herself, and it really is terrible, the sort of thing she's talking about. It's not just the parking, apparently there's the abuse and that goes on, from what she says, is terrible. And CBC, who are responsible for this, seem not to be taking any action about it whatsoever. I know they have done things in the past, like these, the posts that were talked about, put the posts up on the grass verge there. But there needs to be, something has got to be done to stop this. And if I may say so from a personal point of view, I live on Dells Lane, and if I ever go out of the town down Dells Lane into Home Court Avenue at that sort of time, 3:30, on a school day, even there, the parking and traffic is terrible. It's so parked up. There really is congestion even there, and that's quite a distance from the school. So there is a real problem, and the proposal is just that the town council, in the person of our esteemed town clerk and chief executive, should write to the relevant people in Central Beds and express these views and urge them to take some action to do something about it. So I make that as a proposal that we should do that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Strawn and then Councillor Woodhead, please.
I'd happily support Councillor North in that respect, but I don't think it goes far enough. Personally, I think we should also be writing to the head teacher at the school, pointing out or sending a copy of the letter to them so that they're aware of it, but also to our local chief inspector, because the comments that were being made by the member of the public earlier were about road safety. So it's not just a question about parking and inconvenience, it's about the potential danger. And with bad parking, I think that can be a road traffic offence. And in that respect, if there are offences being taking place down there, which it sounds as though to me there probably are, the police should be actively involved and policing the situation and doing their job. So in that respect, if Councillor North would be happy to add that we write to copy the head teacher in at the academy and ask them to remind the parents of their obligations there, and also contact the local chief inspector, I'd be more than happy to support the proposal. But I think it should be a bit stronger than the initial wording, and I hope Councillor North doesn't.
Yes, well, I'm very happy to amend the wording in the way indicated. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Woodhead.
Thank you. I think on the whole, it's a great motion. About 6-7 weeks ago, I met with the head teacher of Biggleswade Academy to talk about exactly this issue for about 2 hours. And he gave me a great campus tour around, excuse me, campus tour, showing me the site and all the kind of issues that are going on there. The head teacher is acutely aware of the problem I don't think he would necessarily thank us writing to him to tell him about some of the things that he already knows that they are doing. And he gave me a list of things that they're already doing, which is involving having their teaching staff monitoring the parking, which which they don't really have to do as part of their job. They've also funded, the school has funded these the kind of like plastic men on the verges, and people have been driving over them. They've even had some of the year 5 students out there with clipboards to try and sort of shame parents into parking. There's a whole load of activity the school's been doing. And I think if anything, we probably need to kind of work with them to solve the problem rather than perhaps entirely making them the problem. I think the one change I would make to the motion is not just Mead End. I think we need to include Kitelands in this, because the problem is you solve the problem at Mead End, it shifts to Kitelands, and it's all part of the same school. So to give a more holistic, I guess, solution to the problem, we need to include Kitelands in that as well. And there was another point I was going to make as well, but I think the school are aware of it. However, there is slightly outside of the motion, but by way of context, a number of in fact, most of the now primary schools in Biggleswade, of course, which Biggleswade Academy is one, will not have a defined catchment area. So if anything, this problem is going to get worse because people will be driving across town elsewhere to drop their kids off, and perhaps won't be living as locally as they may have done previously. So we need to get ahead of this because it's potentially going to get worse before it gets better. But if Councillor North's okay, if we could include Kitelands, I think that would be even stronger.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So yeah.
Councillor Russell. Thank you, Councillor Woodhead.
I think we should still copy the head teacher, because it's a formal letter from the town council, and the head teacher would then be aware that we've written to Central Beds about it. Because there's only so much the school can do, and Councillor Strawn is quite right that it's a police issue, but it's also putting double yellow lines for certain times of the day and making sure they're enforced. So it's a CBC issue and a police issue for safety. And I just noticed when we were looking at the planning application outcomes that there are the 2 schools, that's all that's on the sheet in front of us tonight, both Lawnside and Biggleswade Academy, both of which had determination dates some time ago. So the planning application for Mead End, presumably for changes because of moving to primary, doesn't seem to have been determined yet. And I wonder whether it's partly because of this, but that doesn't stop the need for us to write formally and say to Central Beds, come on, something needs to be done.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Barrett.
It's just a minor thing to add to what everyone else is saying, really, but not to repeat it. But there are a few key things, I think, words that were used by the resident, and that was abusive behaviour. She said that again and again. And I think that's a very important thing that we should be talking to the head teacher and to the police for 2 reasons. One, to the police because it's potentially an offence, and one to the head teacher because it means parents are actually potentially showing their children how they should be behaved. And I think that's something the head teacher should be aware of. So if we are, I fully support that we should be copying in the head teacher for that reason alone.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to comment? I've got something else, Councillor North, if I can just address. I think, Councillor Rusher, you mentioned this about enforcement. I think the important thing is there are double yellow lines down there, but if it's not enforced and not continually enforced, and I think we perhaps should be encouraging the highways or parking enforcement team to be down there at 9 o'clock in the morning or 8:45 in the morning and at 3 o'clock, and ask them to do that over a period of time. So, and make sure that the people that are illegally parking suffer as a result, so that the parking is enforced. It's very difficult as a parent, and I there are challenges when you've got children and trying to park somewhere and you've got to get the child to school. So it's not about not having that understanding, but it's about parking legally and safely. And I think that's the point. We need to make sure that the enforcement team do that. And I think also we should be including the ward councillor and councillors in this, making sure that they're copied into that letter so that they're aware of our position on it, and making sure that they are supporting in their role and challenging the highways team and the the people responsible for this. So it's all of those people. And I appreciate, Councillor North, that's an addition to your motion. But I think that the whole principle really is about making sure that we do something for the residents in both Mead End and in Kytlands Road to reduce the risk to the safe. Reduce the risk of an accident. I was going to reduce the risk of safety, but and make sure that it's more safe for children. So we have a motion, admittedly amended a few times, Aisha and Funda. I'm sure, hopefully you've got all of those edits. So subject to those amendments to that motion, are you happy with that, Councillor North? Councillor Russell, happy? So all those in favour then, please show. I think that is a unanimous support of the motion. Thank you. Right, shall we move on then to 9E, which is a premises licence application. This is a little bit more straightforward. Premises licence application for Biggleswade Butcher for the sale of alcohol off the premises Monday to Sunday 10 till 6. Any comments you wish to make? Councillor Knight.
Propose no objection.
Seconded, anybody? Councillor Barrett, all those in favour? Any? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. We'll move on then to plan applications. So if you're on 10A, then 8B, Crowther Court, Shortmead Street, single story rear extension. Any comments? Subject to neighbours? Yep, okay. We're on 10B, 19 Coltsfoot, conversion of garage to habitable space, erection of front infill porch and modification to bay window, etc. Any comments? Seems reasonable. All those in, no, so yeah, no, subject to neighbours. Land north of 20 Tate Drive, continued change of use for an additional 2-year period for vacant field to use of the land for storage of site cabins. I think this is obviously go on, Councillor Barrett.
I think I read on there that the current ones are all positioned in the centre of this area. And I think any of these new ones, I think, should also stay in that way so they're not impacting on anyone else around, the residents or otherwise. And I think I read something on there from one of the ward councillors as well to something similar. So perhaps if we're going to go back with a response, we have no objection, but please could that be enforced going forward?
Yep. Happy with that, everybody? Yeah. Okay. 24 Lawrence Road, sorry, 10D, 24 Lawrence Road, erection of timber cabin in rear garden for incidental use of main property. Subject to neighbours? Okay, thank you. 10E, 72 Drove Road, removal of rear utility structure and erection of a part single and part 2-storey rear extension, insertion of first floor side window. We're on subject to neighbours again? Yep. 10F, 107 Potham Road, demolition of existing rear kitchen and conservatory and construction of 2-storey rear extension. Subject to neighbours again. Not seeing anything else. 10G, 126 Mead End, single-storey front, side and rear extensions with roof light following removal of garage and conservatory. Again, subject to neighbours. Not seeing any indication elsewhere, so yep, okay. Is everybody happy with that? Okay, I'll take that as yes. 10H, Unit B, Normandy Lane, variation of condition numbers 8 and 13 for plan for extension of factory building to accommodate 4 additional units. So this is a variation of condition. I think it's more about our notifying us really rather than anything else. Councillor Barrett.
I think the last few words on there are the key thing we should consider here.
Yes.
To allow Unit 7 to operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I don't think it does at the moment.
No, it doesn't. It's a good point.
And I'm not absolutely sure I know exactly if there any one residential would be impacted by this. Perhaps others who know better the site more than me, but I read that and thought that might be.
From a location point of view, I can't see any residents being impacted whatsoever. I think it's an industrial area. It wouldn't make any significant difference to any residents. Were it sort of closer to London Road, maybe a little bit, but it's really sort of insignificant. But what I think what is interesting is what they might be looking to use Unit 7 for, given there's a specific request for it. The variation condition doesn't give any indication of what it might be, but I guess we can read between the lines. If it's a unit they want to operate 24 hours a day, there aren't many businesses that need to operate 24 hours a day. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. Perhaps we could find out maybe what that relates to. Anything else? So are we saying no objection, subject to any neighbours really? Yeah, but no objection. Okay, and then we'll move on then to 10I, which is 8 Eagle Farm Road. This is a tree protection preservation order. Again, any comments, Councillor
Just a brief comment. I think these are works, I think, to be carried out, pre-construction works. I think there's planning applications coming for this building here.
Yeah.
So this is work to be done to allow access and so on. So on that basis, I've got no objection.
Okay. Thank you. So we're no objection on that one. 10J, which is again refers to Unit B Normandy Lane. And this is a new vehicular access and additional parking provision off of Pegasus Drive. Sorry. Any comments on this one? Go on, Councillor Barrett, if you're...
Sorry, again, I read in here that where it's being positioned, I think the arboreal officer, I think they're called, was suggesting better landscaping should be included in the application. So I don't think we need to necessarily say anything in particular, but again, we should just take note of the fact that that should be completed. So at some stage, if this goes ahead, we want to make sure that that did actually happen.
Okay. This particular access off of Pegasus Drive, I mean, it's the Pegasus Drive being the main road up to Cemetery and the Co-op. What this would do is have access between both sides of this Unit B. So my only concern, I guess, is it does then offer some, with the best will in the world, the expression rat run, essentially through that car park. So it's worth bearing that in mind, that if that's the way it works, that it's an access through between Normandy Lane and Pegasus Drive. So I think we need to bear that in mind. But it probably makes sense to allow it and not object to it. I think at one stage, if we remember, we had a planning application come forward for an additional unit, which was Unit 9. I think they were looking to Unit 9, which is I think Greggs were looking to build a unit on that site, which is where they're looking to now put car parking. So or a unit for Greggs. So I think we should have no objection to this from a personal point of view. But it's worth noting the concerns that Councillor Barrett's referred to. Any other comments? Oh, okay. And then we'll go on to then 10K, which is 12 Warren Close, single story side and extension and garage conversion with roof lights. Again, they're subject to neighbours, yeah. And then we're now on 11A, then, 10L, 27 Sun Street, first floor rear extension. Again, I think subject to neighbours. 11A, plan and application outcomes. We've got 2 on there. I think I've already been referred to. Any other comments? Any comments, Councillor Strawn?
Yes, the observation I've got is Lawnside Lower School is there, and we've been recently asked, there's a planning application that's in process of going through at the moment. We made our comments that time ago, and I think that unless members feel it's anything to the contrary, that's probably quite a good reply.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Strawn. Mr. Stone, did you make any reference to that, or we will leave it for now? No. Okay. So as you're aware, there is an application that's coming forward. I think we might, depending on the deadline for that we may need to deal with that particular plan and application in a different way because of the deadline that needs to be met. There are some changes to the plan application, but obviously we weren't able to get it onto the agenda for this particular meeting. So we will see what happens there. So I think on that basis, we'll note the report, plan applications report, and and outcomes. We'll move on then to item 12A, accounts. I guess, Mr. Bohr, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the usual 4 reports are on the council's website, and this report includes the balance sheet, the income and expenditure statement, and the payment listing, which includes all the direct debits, the standing orders, and all payments above £500. So the projected outturn after month 11, which is February 2025, suggests a deficit of just over £6,000. And the deficit has been reducing, and one of the main reasons why it has been reducing is unspent budget allocations and also good budget monitoring culture within the council, and also there has been some increase on some of the income lines, i.e. interest income and barrier income. The actual deficit at the end of the financial year will be zeroed by the General Reserve, and the recommendation is members to consider and approve the February financial report, please.
Councillor Strong, thank you, Mr. Ball.
Thank you, Mr. Ball, for the report, and note all the figures, which I think are very encouraging when we were looking at a deficit considerably greater a few months ago. But we're now so close to the year end. I'm hoping that your good work will actually have continued, so that we may have actually got rid of the deficit totally by the year end. So I think that it's been a very encouraging result, and I think in that respect, rather than take any more onto it, I think we note it and wait for the year end figures.
Okay. So do I need to take a vote on this, Peter? So all those in favour of that, then please show. Thank you. That's unanimous. Okay, thank you very much. That's easy. So we'll move. Now, where are we? So item 13, items of information. There are none. Public open session. No members of the public here. Anyone online? So item 15. The following resolution will be moved that it's advisable in the public interest that the public and press are excluded while the following exempt item issue is resolved. Optimum operating model, Century House report, public entertainment update. Pursuant to section 12 of the Public Bodies Admission to Meetings Act 1960, council resolved to exclude the public and press by reason of the confidential nature of the business about to be transacted. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. That is carried. So we'll move into the exempt session.